Oh, and welcome to our first video in order to help prepare you for the theory D&T exam. I'm just going to run through a few things with you first of all, and then we'll get started on the actual preparation. So the idea of this video is to help guide your revision activities in order to prepare for the theory exam in the following area, the design question. So we're just focusing on the design question in this video. And the stuff that we go through should help kind of focus your activity over the course of the holidays, and so that you can prepare in the best way that you possibly can for this part of the paper, which is quite significant. Do make a note that if you're using this video for preparation for the actual exam, that the exam board of course can change the structure of the questions. They're quite entitled to do so, and we have no idea in advance that they're going to do that, so it won't be wildly difficult, I don't think, and you should be able to use the information you've learned throughout the course and your revision information to help adapt whatever they're asking you to do. But just don't go in kind of thinking there's going to be a very set and rigid structure. It can change year to year. Okay, so the design question. So for the real exam, you're going to be given the context, and you're going to have over a month to prepare for the resource materials. So as you know, the first question is where you're going to go in and be asked to design a range of items. You will have an idea before you get to the real exam in June what you're going to be asked to design, so you will have had plenty of time for preparation. In the mock, that's not the case, because we're not going to use lesson time to prepare huge amounts of information for the mock exam, because that time is better spent on your controlled assessment. So you'll go in cold, but what we will do is provide you with a resource back that will account for some of that research you would have done on your own. Okay. So the design question itself then will be set out in the following way. You'll be given a brief, and that brief is obviously the same for every student. And then based on the brief, you're going to have to write a very short, justified design specification. You're then going to have to come up with some design ideas, develop one of those ideas, and usually evaluate that idea against the brief and the specification. Okay, so that's very similar to the process that we follow in the controlled assessment. So when you get into the exam, it should feel very natural and very kind of comfortable for you, because we've spent an awful lot of time going through this standard design process. But let's take a look at each of those individual chunks. So the first one then is the specification. So you'll read the brief, and what you'll try to do is try to understand what the exam board is asking you. So unpack that brief just a little bit, and then write a series of specification points in order to guide your further design activity. Okay, so it's worth looking at some of the past papers so that we can understand what statements commonly appear and that you're going to get marked correct for. And as long as those statements fit with the context that you're given when you get to the exam, then you're of course more than welcome to use those. You may come up with statements that are better in the actual exam, and as long as they're sensible, you should be fine. Okay, so let's look at some examples from 2013. And we'll try to understand what kind of specification points we'll put on there. Okay, so just to give you a little bit of context, the design question in 2013 was to design a table holder for a menu and some salt and pepper and a table number for a cafe. Okay, and in this particular year they were asked to design in the style of Art Deco. Okay, and of course they would have been told this in advance, so they would be prepared. So this wouldn't have been a surprise to any students in the exam. Okay, so it says the restaurant and cafe owner often provide a number of items on each table. The illustrations below show the sorts of things they often provide. Okay, so the brief says the owner of the chain of Art Deco inspired cafes has asked you to design a device for holding and carrying some or all of these items. The device must display the menu and table number. All of your designs must clearly illustrate your understanding of the Art Deco style. And as we move down the paper, then it says give 3 design requirements for the device. And you're asked to give a requirement and then explain why that requirement would be important. Okay, and that's worth 2 marks. Next one's worth 2 marks. Next one's worth 2 marks. That's an easy 6 points really. So what you want to do is make sure that you don't repeat any of the information that's given to you on the specification, on the brief or the example, and that you justify your statements. So let's have a look at the mark scheme. Okay, so the following criteria to mark 1A, B, and C. Okay, so typical responses are that the device should be easy to carry. It must be soundly constructed. It must be safe to use. It must be ergonomically designed. Okay, so all of these statements add to the brief. They don't repeat information from the brief. Okay, so if you said something like it had to be designed in the Art Deco style, then it will probably be marked wrong, because that's already clearly stated in the brief. Okay, so once your specification is written, you'll then move on to the design ideas. Now, you're normally asked for 5 design ideas, each of those design ideas being worth 3 marks. So in that context, you're starting to understand that 3 marks is roughly worth 3 minutes in the exam, and therefore you're not expected to produce the kind of quality of drawing that you'd be expected to produce in your controlled assessment. So don't spend too long on this question, okay? Sometimes when they ask you for 5 design ideas, they will split those down into 2 different groups. So for example, design 2 that are in the Art Deco style and 3 that are not in the Art Deco style, okay? Or if it's for an MP3 docking station, it may be that design 2 that have adjustable speakers and 3 that don't have adjustable speakers, for example, okay? But do spend your time wisely, okay? This is a question you can come back to a little bit later on in the paper as well. Okay, marks for this can appear to be a little bit subjective, okay? So each of the 5 design ideas is worth 3 marks. If you only put 3 design ideas down, then you're limiting yourself to 9 marks out of potential 15, so you must get 5 ideas down. Okay, if you repeat an idea, you don't get any marks, obviously. The idea is very, very simple, so simple geometric shapes would probably only get you 1 mark. If they display some creativity, you get 2 marks, or an idea that is judged to be very creative is 3 marks. Okay, now if you take a look at the example, I'll just zoom in here. Okay, now this is again for the holder for the menu and the salt and peppers and table numbers. And there are 3 ideas down here. The first one is a very, very simple shape. You'll notice that very, very quickly, and that's of course only worth 1 mark. If the design displays some creativity or an additional feature, in this case the handle, then you'll be given an extra mark. And if the design goes 1 stage further and has more than 1 design feature and has some element of creativity above and beyond what is recognized for the 2 marks, then you'll get your 3 marks. Okay, I do understand that it can be quite difficult to understand the differences, particularly between these 2 and 3 markers, but you'll see the idea is getting slightly more complex and slightly more creative as you jump from 1 to 2 to 3 marks. The key information here is that you must get your 5 ideas down, and you must make sure that you read exactly what's being asked of you for the design idea. So sometimes the exam board are a bit cheeky and they split those 5 ideas into 2 groups. Okay, so typically in your coursework, after you've come up with a range of ideas, you start to develop those ideas into something that's more refined and more defined. Okay, so that's exactly what comes next in the paper. Okay, so look carefully at what's being asked for you again in this context, and you'll be asked normally to take one idea and develop it through to full solution. So in the 2013 example, so this question was worth 9 marks, so this is significant, okay? So the development part is significant. It asks you to choose your best idea from question 2 and then use notes and sketches to show how you would develop your design, okay? Now this year, the students were given marks for materials and finishes, construction details, design features and sizes, okay? If they spent time on anything other than those, they were unlikely to get marks, okay? So when we go through this question, you must make sure that you clearly identify and label and annotate materials and finishes, any construction details, design features and sizes, because if that's not clearly identified on your designing, then you will be unlikely to get these marks. Just in a little bit more detail, materials and finishes, it could be that you choose acrylic, and then you would explain why acrylic would be suitable in your context, so easy to clean, self-finishing, self-colored. Okay, sizes must always be in millimeters. So I would recommend you always put millimeters on and just do a quick sense check with your ruler to make sure that the sizes you're putting down are sensible. Construction details can be anything from the type of join that you might use, or fixing, knockdown fittings, or mechanical fixings. But make sure they're clearly labelled. And just like in your coursework, if you think something is unclear on your sketch, just do a little exploded drawing next to it, just to show that you've really considered how the object is going to come together. Okay. And the last section there is to evaluate. Okay, now this part of the question doesn't always appear, but when it does, you must make sure that you go back, you look at your brief, you look at your specification, and then you develop the idea, and then you evaluate against the brief and spec. Okay, your comments must be analytical, and you must use connecting words to help justify your comments. So if you make a statement, extend the statement by using words like therefore, so, and because, so it becomes much more objective. Okay, so there's your prep for the design question. Of course, if you've got any questions, feel free to email me.